This is Harbin, the city where I live. It is the capital city of Jilin Province. And this is Changchun, the capital city of Jilin Province. My mom wanted to go to somewhere with water and trees but without much climbing. So we chose Jingyuetan, a huge forest park with a reservoir in Changchun. And we tried to fit the whole trip into one day. The trip started badly. Our original train was cancelled, and the replacement had no seats left. Since we were going to stand for several hours, I went to the dining car to look for somewhere to sit. I found a seat, but it came with a box meal I didn't really want. The meal cost me 25 yuan, which was more than half the price of my train ticket. And I believe people will buy it for only one reason. They just want a seat. So the real deal was 25 yuan for the chair with a box meal included. And I gotta say, the meal was terrible. Basically, I paid 25 yuan for the seat, and they gave me a bad lunch for free. Outside the window, the scenery changed very slowly. Fields, rows of trees, small villages, and then more fields. It was not spectacular, but it was familiar. That is what much of the land between cities in northeast China actually looks like. When we arrived there, I found Changchun Station felt larger than I expected. There are several level shops inside the station, and the stronger sense that the station was part of a larger commercial complex. It reminded me more of Shenyang North Station than Harbin Station. Arriving in Changchun was only the first half of the journey. Jingyuetan was still almost another hour away by light rail. We crossed the footbridge, stepped outside, and almost immediately had to turn back. The rain became heavy within a few seconds. More than half an hour later, the rain finally became lighter. We entered the park while many other visitors were already leaving. Before reaching the lake, the park felt like a collection of different spaces. There were religious buildings, monuments, sculptures, and a long road through the forest. I was not always sure how these things were connected. The lakeside was where Jingyuetan finally began to make sense. From the dam, we could see water, the forested banks, and the real scale of the park. Jingyuetan is enormous, but it's not organized around a long list of attractions. Things are fall apart. There are very few shops, and most of the experience is simply walking, cycling, or sitting beside the water. For local residents with a free afternoon, that might be exactly why they enjoy it. It works more like a huge recreational forest than a conventional tourist attraction. But for someone traveling from another city, especially on a tight schedule, it can feel strangely empty. The lake is clearly the visual center. Away from the water, much of the park is long roads, trees, and distance.
对哈，这往那边流。
And still, even a quiet lake needs a ready-made romantic sentence telling visitors exactly what kind of photos to take. Personally, I really don't like signs like this. They have become so common in Chinese scenic areas that They made every place feel cheaper than life's individual. For me, travel is never about standing where everyone else has stood, taking the same photo and posting it online as proof that I was there. It's about exploring somewhere unfamiliar, seeing a different landscape, and experiencing a little of how life feels in another place. The lake already had its own view. It doesn't need a slogan telling people how to photograph it. We also followed a sign to somewhere called the Forest Botanical Garden. The name sounded much more impressive than what we really found there. And I went to a public toilet. It was clean, but you know it, still squat toilets. It started to rain heavier. Tourists and park workers were all hiding under the same small pavilion. We never reached the deeper parts of the park. The rain had already taken too much of the afternoon, so my opinion is only based on the areas we actually saw. Jingyuetan was pleasant, but I would not come here expecting a dense collection of sights. In its time, good weather, and the willingness to do very little. Then we took the light rail back towards the city. After several hours of gray skies and empty paths, the evening streets felt unusually intense. One of the busiest places in this area was a shopping mall that had been designed to look like a small mountain town. I understood why people stopped to look and taking photos, but I was always aware that I was inside a shopping mall trying very hard to create that impression. Outside the mall, the real streets was more interesting. They were less polished, but they had restaurants, small shops, old apartment buildings, people waiting for food and reason to stay outside. We ate at a well-known local rice noodle shop. A regular bowl cost 18 yuan and came with a small drink. It was slightly more expensive than an ordinary noodle shop, but the food was really good. After the box meal on the train, it felt like a major improvement. On the way to the bus stop, old buildings waiting for demolition stood directly in front of new towers. That contrast told me something about why some streets feel alive and others do not. Older, lower-rise neighborhoods usually have more entrances, smaller shops and business opening directly onto the pavement. New high-rise compounds may contain far more residents, but walls, parking areas, and large setbacks often make the surrounding street feel emptier. Harbin has its dragon tower, Shenyang has its television tower, and we can see Changchun has one too. Apparently, every provincial capital in northeast China needs a giant needle in the sky. After taking my mom to the station, I still got about 1 hour left. It's pretty cool outside. I rented a bike and stopped trying to visit attractions. I simply followed the brighter street north. At night, Changchun reminded me more of Shenyang than Harbin. Instead of one nighttime destination, it had several commercial districts spread across the city. Around the miles of Full Street, there were signs, traffic, restaurants, and people everywhere. I only passed the edge of Guilin Road, so I cannot pretend that I properly explored it. But even from outside, they were clearly one of the livelier areas. This became my strongest impression of Changchun at night. The commercial districts were bright and crowded. The roads connecting them were spacious and quiet. Harbin feels different. Its most visible nighttime activity is concentrated around Central Street, but that area now works mainly as a tourist attraction. In the older parts of Changchun, commercial activity seemed to spill into streets more naturally. Near one big mall, there was more pedestrians and several tall office towers. The tallest building in this area is close to 290 meters, but the skyline itself was relatively restrained. The towers were not covered in giant text advertisements, and most of the visual energy stayed at street level. The high rises are also quite spread out. The street is bright. The skyline does not become one continuous world of light. I also passed Chongqing Road, but I never really found the center of the shopping district. That was a limitation of this 1 hour ride. I saw many places, but I rarely had time to stop. Back at Changchun Station, I finally saw the whole building from outside. The station has more than 1 century of railway history. Although the building we see today is mainly the result of modern reconstruction and expansion. From outside, the clock tower and huge arch make it look like an oversized city gate. Inside, the waiting hall felt much more ordinary. In the morning, we could not find a seat. On the return journey, half the carriage was empty. I thought the trip home would finally be quiet. It was not. We arrived back in Harbin after midnight. The streets were empty, and the last roadside food stalls was preparing to close. We went to Changchun because of Jingyuetan. The park was pleasant, but the part I kept thinking about was the hour I spent riding through the city. I saw too little of Changchun to understand it properly. That might be the best reason to come back.